the Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with the injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Great.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome in. This is FST, Fantasy Sports Today. My name is Matt Stryker. His name is Joe Pisapia, and this is the place if you want to dominate. Whether it's season-long, DFS, straight-up wagering, we've got you covered. Talking baseball, talking football, of course, with Joe Pisapia, the author of the Fantasy Black Book. It is currently out and available. Changes the way people just look at their drafts. I promise you, you have the Black Book, you win your leagues. That's just how it goes. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about everything that you need. Let's start Major League Baseball. Injuries are a part of the game, Joe. We're going to talk about who's hurt and where can we go.
Yeah, a lot of injuries. That's what Major League Baseball is all about. Also, a big injury, Kyle Tucker going in the IL this weekend too, which everybody kind of thought was going to be a foregone conclusion. So another one bites the dust, as Freddie Mercury would say. But the good news, the silver lining, is Joey Loperfido's coming back up. My Joey, my boy, my guy, Joey Loperfido, how you doing? Love seeing this guy back up. He's going to play the outfield now. And I've got a sneaking suspicion, Matt Stryker, that he ain't going anywhere when Kyle Tucker comes back, because Jose Abreu has done nothing, and Singleton's not the answer. And the Astros need to make some hard decisions right now, okay? So what I want to see is Joey Loperfido come up for a couple weeks, hit just like he did at the Major League level when he's given opportunities, and then when Kyle Tucker comes back, you move Loperfido to the first base, and you move Jose Abreu to a cruise ship somewhere and let him go hang out and enjoy all that money you're going to pay him, because he is not producing for you. It's over. It's sad. It's fine. We move on. That's what we do. So Joey Loperfido, at him right now. Coming up next here. There you go. Let's get to the pitching injuries, because there's always a buttload of those. Kenta Maeda left to start early. I mean, it's depressing some weeks, but we got to talk about it. Kenta Maeda, unfortunately, left his start Wednesday because of right side issue. Stop me if you heard that one before. Jack Flaherty, Matt Stryker's best friend, unfortunately, also had a back issue. Now, he says he's going to make his next start on Tuesday, so Matt will be watching with bated breath in his Jack Flaherty Cardinals jersey, even though he doesn't pitch for the Cardinals anymore, hoping for the best from Jack Flaherty, so we'll get to see if that works out. But Jack Flaherty's been, again, another one of these guys who's been absolutely brilliant this year. And talk about a return on investment. There's a late-round dart throw pick or a guy off the waiver wire. Jack Flaherty's been the goods, man. And maybe, look, I've seen a lot of people trade Jack Flaherty and turn him into other things. That's great. I totally get that. I know that's what Matt wanted to do. So if you listen to Matt, good on you. I'm sure that's going to work out also. But I know Matt was like kind of doing that little grin, weren't you? Like when you saw Flaherty after last week's conversation, have that back issue, you started to grin a little bit.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm going to smile at someone else's misfortune. I'm going to stand on my
that's the
own
guy
and say, I
Yeah.
was right, and pound my chest. Sorry, world, but I'm not of your way. No, I do not smile, but I will say from a wagering perspective, all kidding aside, from a wagering perspective, I told you so, and I'm not an I told you so. I'm not smiling. I'm not smiling at someone's misfortune. But Joe, there's a lot to unpack from your rant here, because there was Gene Wilder and Willy Wonka. Nothing and never. There was that. There was buttload. There was an eyebrow raise for those on radio. Joe gave me this eyebrow raise. There's just so much. When guys get hurt, we aren't surprised. But what we as wagerers and investors, it's incumbent upon us to find outs and alternatives before it happens. If you didn't know that the Jack Flaherty shoe was going to drop, then that's a bigger problem. But if you had an out, an exit plan, if you said, okay, when and if, for all my logic students out there, if this, then that, if Jack Flaherty falters, where am I going? These are the questions we ask Kenta Maeda with his side. If your investment is in the Tigers pitching staff and you don't have an exit strategy, you really need shows like this. Joe, where do you want to go now?
Well, unless that guy's name is Tariq Skubal. I'm not trading that guy. Out of my cold, dead hand, how good has that guy been? Good news
but that
on
was
the injury
expected.
front for pitchers. True, and better than expected, even if you had high expectations. Edwin Diaz, already pitching in rehab. That's good with that shoulder impingement that he's been dealing with, so he should be back, you would think, probably next week sometime, end of next week, maybe, you think? Possibly? I don't know. Joe Musgrove had an MRI on that elbow, so this is actually the best case scenario. It turned out to be a bone spur. So that's something they can address pretty easily, clean up for him, and then in a few weeks start throwing again. So that actually, for those people who have Joe Musgrove, is probably the best case scenario with an elbow issue. So we've seen guys get that cleaned up before and all of a sudden look like different guys. So let's see what Joe Musgrove looks like after that procedure. On the hitter front, Ronald Acuna finally did have his ACL surgery earlier this week, so that is now in the books, and now rehab begins. Wilson Contreras, again, with that broken forearm, a gruesome injury. I remember watching this one live. It was no fun. He is already throwing and catching, so that's a good sign for him. We'll take it slow with him. Just glad he's okay. Christian Encarnacion Strand dealing with a wrist injury. He is now cleared to resume baseball activities. So the Reds getting Marte back in a few weeks. Maybe Encarnacion Strand comes back and looks healthy and starts to hit a little bit. Don't sleep on the Reds. They could be a very fun team. And Eloy Jimenez, with his hamstring issues, will begin a minor league rehab assignment this week. So Matt Jimenez,
Yes, sir.
This is a player that's been going for a long time here where he's been a bit of a tease. If Jimenez somehow comes back in the next 2 weeks, starts to hit, actually hits and looks decent in June and July, can the White Sox actually get something for him?
I'll answer before you finish the question, because they've been actively shopping Luis Robert. You cannot deny the fact that adding Jimenez to a package to try to get something, maybe you're calling Baltimore right now, you're calling some of these teams that have a rich farm system, but absolutely they can, just based on the prospect of what Eloy Jimenez could be. You and I understand, as wagerers, as players, you as an author and a voice of an industry, you understand what Eloy Jimenez is differently than the average wagerer holding an app on their phone in their hand. And that to me is why, and it's not just for this show, for this network, do your due diligence out there. Find something that speaks to you, a show, a column, a Twitter account, an X account, something, and see how often they're right. Because it's your money. It's not their money. You got someone like Joe who's going to be right 7.5 to 8 times out of 10. And that beats any hedge fund manager, any analyst, any expert. And we're just having casual conversations here on this show. So yes, Eloy Jimenez is definitely something the White Sox can put into a package and get something back, as is Luis Robert. And I would keep an eye on those players because other people are overlooking them. Joe?
Garrett Crochet, another guy too, that I think is going to get moved. Now, I think the package of Robert and Crochet could bring back a lot for the White Sox, depending on how they want to approach this. I keep looking at the Mariners, and I look at the Seattle Mariners, and I say, can we please give Julio Rodriguez some sort of line of protection? I mean, it's just ridiculous. Last year he had Teoscar Hernandez, and whatever you think about Hernandez, he's a threat to go yard. And that's the other thing in this lineup they just don't have right now. You know, the Cal Raleighs of the world and Mitch Garvers of the world, like that's not enough. And we all knew it wasn't enough going into the year. And I just thought sooner than later they would be aggressive out there on the market. But if you look at this pitching staff and you look at Kirby starting to pitch better, I know Castillo had a rough outing this year, but this past weekend, but Castillo's still a really good pitcher.
Miller.
Wu has been terrific. Like all these guys are really good. Logan Gilbert's been really good. They have the deepest rotation in that division by far. So what do you need to do here? You need to get some more offense. And I know you're waiting and you're trying to, you know, casually get to a spot here where it starts to make sense, but don't wait too long. Julio Rodriguez needs some help. And there's only so long you can do this where you can get by with this one-man offense because it's just not enough. You need some more thump in that lineup. Luis Robert would be a game changer for the Mariners. And you know what? I think the line would move significantly towards them in the American League if that deal happened. Do you agree with that? Or would it still be the Yankees and everybody else or some sort of amalgamation?
No, you would definitely see line movement. You would definitely see waters muddied if Luis Robert became a Seattle Mariner.
All right, we're going to try to tread ourselves out of the mud and look to the waiver wire and add some healthy guys again to help our teams. We've got a few bats to add, and if you like saves, you need some saves. There's a guy still floating down the waiver wire who should not be on the waiver wire, who has been getting it done all year for the Blue Jays. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at the names that you need to add this week on your waiver wire. Don't go anywhere. FST right after this.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Great.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today. Matt and Joe with you here, giving you everything you need in order to dominate. And quick reminder, at SportsGrid and at SportsGrid TV. Those are our social media handles. Just double check that you give us a follow. Make sure all the information that we talk about here doesn't just fly off into the ether and is somehow used for free energy. I read somewhere that can happen, and now I will disappear. All right, it is time for the waiver wire. And Joe, right now, and I seem to say it every week, but each time we approach this waiver wire segment, it feels like the most important waiver wire segment. I mean, am I just too into my fantasy baseball, or is there some truth to the statement?
Yes and yes. I think both things can be true. But look, we've been crushing it. Think about last week, right? Nick Gonzalez was on this segment last week, right? If you added Nick Gonzalez this week, I think you're a happy camper. Mason Wynn was on this segment last week. I mean, there's been some guys here on the waiver wire, and it stayed pretty fruitful into June here. And that's a good thing because Mark Vientos is where I want to start. He qualifies at first base and at third base in a lot of leagues. His defense has always been kind of that question mark, but he's been playing a pretty good third base for the Mets. And Brett Baty got sent down, and Brett Baty's not happening. It's Vientos' job now. And Vientos had a fantastic spring. He then got sent down because he didn't make the team when JD Martinez got signed. I think he was really unhappy about that. He felt like he had earned that spot, and he's probably right. But at the same time, it doesn't matter. All you can do is go out there and continue to kick tires, play hard, be the guy that you're supposed to be. And look, Mark Vientos did that at AAA. He got the call back up, and he's still available in about 60+% of leagues. Now, that's a lot of leagues where you can still pick up Mark Vientos. So far, over 21 games this year, hitting .314 with a .372 OBP and a .586 slugging, 5 homers, 12 RBI, 12 runs scored. So that is a really astounding pace. I don't think the batting average is going to stay there, but if it settles somewhere into a 275 range, you can live with that. And Mark Vientos, in my opinion, is a 25 to 30 home run guy at the major league level. I think he's a really good, solid power bat. He should not be available in as many leagues as he is still. I think that's a gross mishandling there by the fantasy baseball community at large, and I think he should be added right now. People are down on the Mets, and rightfully so. But Vientos is going to have everyday at-bats. He is one of the guys that you're going to look to for the future, along with the Francisco Alvarez of the world and guys like that when they start to get healthy. So the Mets do have some pieces here going forward that eventually this organization will turn over, hopefully in a more positive light. But Vientos is a guy right now in the present that can really help your rosters, and you should pick him up as soon as you possibly can.
Yep, I agree with the assessment wholeheartedly, especially with the position eligibility. But what we're seeing here to me is a standings bias. We see it all the time. We talk about certain players that people just overlook because they're on such and such a team. Well, if it's fantasy baseball, you still will get individual results. DFS even more so, and wagering, my gosh, I mean, that's what it's all about. So interesting point there about Vientos, and it applies to this next team and this next player who, funnily enough, my mother hates when I use that, played in New York, but just for the other team. We're going out to Oakland and talking about Miguel Andujar, rostered in only 38% of leagues.
Yeah, well, this is another guy, journeyman guy, right, who's been around. So it doesn't have nearly the upside Vientos has. But he was another guy just like Vientos who had an incredible spring, and then an injury happened, and people kind of went, oh, well, I guess the Andujar experiment's not going to happen. But, it bounced around New York, the Pirates, now he's in Oakland, and look, Oakland's got open at-bats. So if you're hitting, you're going to be playing. So far, since he's returned here over 12 games, 6 runs scored, 2 homers, 12 RBI, hitting .286, a .449 slugging. You like the OBP to be a little higher. He doesn't have a walk yet. That's a little troubling. But if you're in a deeper league and you're looking for some help in the outfield, another player that's available in about 60% of leagues, that's helpful. That's good. Everyday player who has a little bit of pop. I'm not saying Andujar is as good of an ad. If I had waiver priorities, I'd be adding Vientos. But in a deeper league, I think Andujar is another one of these players so you can look at, say, all right, I need to plug and play somebody in the outfield for a couple weeks. Like Kyle Tucker just went down, right? Lo Profito will be my first choice. If I don't get him, then I would probably look to a guy like Andujar to be maybe a guy that you could plug in there too. So I think another one of these deeper league guys that's available could be a help, not a long-term solution, but maybe a short-term one too, if he can recapture a little bit of that hot streak and what he was doing so well in spring this year.
You hit the ball, you catch the ball, you throw the ball. Let's go from guys that hit the ball to guys that throw the ball. Jordan Romano goes on the IL. A lot of people were thinking that there was going to be a committee, but I ran out and actually have shares of this guy we're going to talk about. I want to get your thoughts on if this is going to be the guy or is someone else going to vulture shaves. Let's go to Toronto.
I don't think it's anybody else but Yimi Garcia. I really don't. And he's kind of earned that role. If you look at his numbers this year, he does have the 4 saves, as you were mentioning before, 24 games, right? 25 innings, 33 strikeouts. The strikeout rate is well over 1K per 9. 9K per 9, I should say, is where it should be. .72 whip, 216 ERA. Everything's been really good for him. And again, he is rostered in 35% of leagues. How is this possible that he's still floating out there? You don't know what's going to happen with Jordan Romano. You don't know how that shoulder is going to react, if he's going to have setbacks at some point in time. All I know is that right now, this is the guy saving games. So go out there and keep him. Also, you don't know long-term if the Blue Jays hang around or don't. If they start selling off pieces, maybe Romano comes back and he's a piece they sell off. A lot of teams could use some bullpen help. So Yimi Garcia could be a guy that really might end up saving more games than you realize. So, yeah, I'm with you, Matt. Garcia is a guy that if you didn't add him last week, you should absolutely add him this week, regardless of whatever Romano news comes out there, because that is a tenuous situation whenever a guy's dealing with a shoulder injury.
Absolutely. All right, with the time that we have left, let's head out to Baltimore, basically a free square, but it opens up a much larger conversation. This team is just an embarrassment of riches.
They are. Connor Norby is the latest of all of the prospects that come up here. So he's kind of leapfrog Jackson Holiday again. Been great in Norfolk. If the Baltimore Orioles could just play all their games in Norfolk with all these kids, it would be amazing. But unfortunately, they do play in Camden Yards still. He's gotten 14 at-bats, hasn't done much here. It seems like another thing where we just get disappointed by it. But is he worth adding speculatively? I think yes. He's rostered in just 14% of leagues. I don't want to pay a lot for Norby, but I think you do add him just to see if maybe this week is good. And if it's not good, you can cut him afterwards. That's okay. But Norby, again, has a lot of talent. He's produced. He seems to have, as I said before, leapfrogged Holiday, at least for the time being. But Holiday hasn't been great since he's been sent down. It's a tricky situation. Maybe, just maybe, the Orioles should think about cashing in some of these prospects, some guys that can help them win a championship, because this is your window, Baltimore. We come back, we're going to take a hard look at the lines, because there's been some line movement in the American League MVP. We'll talk about it when we come back.
When it comes to betting on sports, injuries matter, and Sports Injury Central has you covered all year long with expert injury analysis and injury-based picks for the NFL, NBA, and MLB. Our former pro sports doctors have unmatched experience to analyze every injury so you know the impact of the player, team, and their upcoming matchup. Whether it's articles, podcasts, player insights, or our patented injury scores, Sports Injury Central will help you keep up with your fantasy team and make more informed wagers. So make sure you follow Sports Injury Central and gain an edge at sixscore.com.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. Fantasy sports today.
Be a guy that's really useful in your fantasy rotation? I think the answer is yes.
Game time decisions.
And guess what? I'm going to lose the bet because he's injured again.
Betting above the rim.
He's got a broke J. That's all there is to it. He's got no confidence in that jump shot.
My thing you've always heard me say on the network is you're either winning or you're rebuilding.
In-game live all access.
Wondering when that was going to happen, and the answer is it just did.
Sometimes you think the bigger guy will have the advantage. Well, if the little guy can move, Joe, it's hard to hit the little guy sometimes when you're a big boy, right?
In-game live, prime time.
20-1, I'm going to take a little flyer on Justin Rose.
In-game live, overtime.
As you sit here and listen, watch right now, you may want to consider placing that bet.
It's smarter to be on sports.
Great.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports today. Matt and Joe with you here, giving you everything you need to dominate. And during the break, Joe and I having a somewhat conversation. It was more just me ranting, just about the basics of how people conduct themselves these days where everything is under a microscope. and everyone is putting on a show for everyone else to see, to me, you're wasting your time. Worry about your own. Cultivate your own garden. Till your own land. Let all these people go out there and tell you what they are while we work quietly, silently, and consistently. And that sets up this segment. It's time now for line movement. And the reason I say it is so important, we keep our nose to the grindstone, Joe. Each and every week, we seem to revisit Major League Baseball line movement when it comes to futures awards. And each and every week, we're having these good conversations and finding this good value while everyone else is posing for pictures that aren't even being taken. So I thank you for that. Let's do some work now. Let's go. AL MVP line movement.
Nobody churns butter like Matt Stryker, let me tell you. He is out there in the fields. He's plowing. He's churning the butter. He's out there at the same farmer's market that he doesn't want to go to. He's selling the eggs. He's doing all the things out there. You got to love him. He's a simple man, Matt Stryker. And he likes money, and so do I. And Matt, we're talking about the American League MVP race, and it's changed overnight because this graphic we had built is now a little out of date. You looked at what happened yesterday. I'm going to update you what's going on today. So Aaron Judge plus 155. Juan Soto obviously took a little bit of a dip, plus 350 with the forearm injury. Gunnar Henderson plus 500. Now that board looks like Aaron Judge at plus 125. Bobby Witt at plus 450, which I love Bobby Witt, but I just can't get there. Juan Soto at plus 460. Gunnar Henderson at plus 480. So the Soto share is starting to tick back. Now, it's a really intriguing period of time to buy on Juan Soto if you do believe that this injury is not a big deal, because you're not going to see 5-1 on Juan Soto again. But perhaps the most interesting piece is this. My favorite long shot that I don't think is getting enough credit, that is really a one-man offense in Cleveland. I mean, Josh Naylor's pretty good. I know Fry's been good. Like, so there's been some contributors. Stephen Kwan's a nice player, but let's be honest. It's Jose Ramirez and everybody else on that team. And he might not be Barry Bonds, but he might be an MVP this year. And he's been a guy who's flirted with this before. Plus 2,400 was the number going into this weekend. Now that number is plus 1,800. So, Matt, I think people are starting to catch up a little bit to a few things. Number one, the Cleveland ballpark adjustments have made the Guardians one of the best home run hitting teams in the league. Third right now, to be specific. That's a big thing, because if Ramirez can continue to put up some monumental numbers, let's say Soto comes back, Judge is back, Judge and Soto cannibalize each other a little. They're both in New York. Who to vote for? You know, a lot of people in the media, spoiler, don't really like New York teams that much. Don't really love just giving awards out to guys who play in New York and all that comes with it. Now, it's a big media market. They're very famous players. I get all that. But how do you separate Judge from Soto this year? They've both been great. You could vote for both of them. Or you could look to the Cleveland Guardians instead, Matt, and say, hey, look at this guy who's got the weight of his shoulders as one guy. Maybe he's the MVP. What do you think about Jose Ramirez at now plus 1,800? Maybe you can get it at 24 somewhere else, but not at some other markets.
Listen, wind tunnel or not, I'm in on it because of the value and because of what we've talked about here is how we look at certain teams and they vulture. Judge vultures Soto, vice versa. Betts vultures Ohtani, vultures Freeman, vultures Smith. Acuna would have vultured Ozuna and Olsen. There is no vulture for Jose Ramirez. And in all likelihood, Luis Robert isn't being traded to Cleveland. So let's keep these kind of things in mind. That, to me, is a great play. And that's something that I'd throw something on and just sit and watch and wait, especially with that wind tunnel that's out there. Let's go to the NL with the time that we have remaining. What do you like?
Look, Mookie Betts is still at the top of the board, plus 140. Shohei Ohtani at 4-1, and then you got Bryce Harper at 6-1. Again, I worry about Betts and Ohtani kind of cannibalizing themselves a little bit. I look at Bryce Harper and I look at the Phillies rotation, and I think the Phillies rotation is going to make them close to a 100-win team. And if that's the case, how do you not look at Bryce Harper for that award? I'm just like, I know the Dodgers are a very public team and everybody's very excited about the Dodgers. I'd be surprised if Mookie Betts was still the favorite when we get to the All-Star break. I think this is a two-man race because the rest of the league really isn't viable for this award so far. I think it's absolutely Bryce Harper and Shohei Ohtani and kind of a fight towards the death here for this award. And I'm putting my money on Bryce Harper for it. I think the Phillies are the team right now, and I think he is more valuable in that asset to the Dodgers, who are there every year without Ohtani. That's my opinion of it. But again, 6-1, we shall see. I think it's a really good number. We come back. We're going to continue to press forward here, but change the dynamic over to the gridiron. Little football talk. We return on FS2.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back into FST. It's Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe with you here, in addition to an entire group of family and friends on the other side of the glass. Just before the break, Joe had mentioned we're shifting over to football. In full disclosure, Joe coaches his kids' flag football teams, I believe they are. Joe, you'll correct me. And I know you guys are in the playoffs. We were just doing some mock press conferences, and then people were chiming in. It's just so much fun to have someone like you. And Joe, you see this in youth sports, having that fun, being out there and seeing the smiles on those kids' faces. And I jokingly asked you, what's the line in the game? And Joe did say his team -6. But at the end of the day, I think it's really important that you set the example. You set the role model for these kids, boys and girls. So on behalf of all parents out there, thank you, Joe, for doing that. And thank you to all the coaches out there that really do sacrifice their time. And you guys do help out a lot. Thank you so much. All right. With that said, Joe, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? You want to play a little Would You Rather, the clean version?
Yeah. Let's play Would You Rather. And also, I want to encourage everybody, sign your sons and your daughters up for flag football. Okay. My daughter's been playing in the co-ed league for many years now. Go sign them up. It's a great way for them to learn the game and have some fun. It's flag football is a fantastic opportunity there for everybody. So there's NFL flag leagues all over the place. Go join one. I'm telling you, you'll be very happy you did. It's a great environment, really cool stuff there. So that's enough of that. Let's get to some of the running backs here, because I thought it'd be fun to play a little Would You Rather. These are running backs on the same team at different ADPs. So it really comes down to what kind of investment you want to make in a certain player. Is one guy at a higher ADP a better investment than a guy at a lower ADP? That's an important question. Sometimes these ADPs are close. Sometimes they're pretty far apart. So you have to pay a lot more capital for certain guys. So we're going to start with the Commanders, who have a new head coach, Dan Quinn, who I really like. I think Dan Quinn's a good football coach. I do believe that the second time around, you see a lot of head coaches get it right the second time. And Dan Quinn, I think, could be one of those guys. I really do. He's had a really good track record and a couple different stops here. So I'm looking at him to get this team right. And he's got a young quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who's going to run the football quite a bit. So you have now Austin Eckler coming into town from the Chargers. He is going on right now at an ADP of 95 overall, RB 31, which is probably where he is right now in his career, right? He's a guy probably you're looking at as more of a flex guy than necessarily an RB2. And then you have Brian Robinson Jr., standout at Alabama, really solid running back. He is at ADP 108 and RB 34 on the board. So Robinson a little bit cheaper. So when I'm trying to parse these two, a lot of it does have to do theoretically into format, right? PPR format, theoretically, Austin Eckler is more intriguing there. My concern with Eckler is the injury starting to pile up here with the wear and tear. He is a smaller player. He is going to be working in this committee. He's also not going to get a lot of goal line opportunities with Brian Robinson around. That's what worries me the most. Because if Eckler does get hurt or is dealing with injuries throughout the year, you already know he's not scoring touchdowns. So I think I would rather fade Eckler and wait another maybe round and select Brian Robinson Jr., especially in half PPR leagues or standard, because I think there's going to be more goal line work for him and probably more first down work for him too, where he's going to be on first and second down a little bit more. We'll see what this offense looks like. Maybe we'll get a different picture of it potentially in preseason in August. This is one of those teams that I want to watch in preseason. Preseason doesn't mean anything except for the teams where it means everything. And the Commanders, I think it means a lot because you have new coach, new quarterback, new system, new player, like a lot of new stuff. How's it working out? We're not going to get a lot of answers, but we might get some. And I think that's a team to watch this summer.
Am I correct in just assuming that Robinson is a newer model with far more bells and whistles? I do think there's more that Robinson's game can bring at this point, his age, considering the newness or the age of the quarterback in the system.
Young running back is the way to be. Let's be honest. I mean, that's a very easy, true statement to make.
Fair enough. All right, let's go to Pittsburgh now here in the battle between Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. You have Najee as an RB20 going right around 67, and then Warren is an RB27 going around 85. I'd rather Harris, but you're the expert.
Yeah, typically I'd rather have Harris too, and I think at 20, Harris is a good investment. But I will say this. The cheaper you get Harris, the more I like him. If you can get him at 24 as opposed to 27, I like it a lot more as a 24th running back off the board. So, and he might fall there. I mean, the expert consensus rankings, he's actually 24. Jaylen Warren, again, right behind him at 27. So Warren is intriguing because of, where we're at in the career of a guy like Russell Wilson. We're going to dump off the ball a lot, but I still think I agree with you that, it's still going to be a run-first team. It's still the Pittsburgh Steelers identity. The defense did get better year over year. Run the football, play defense. Warren is probably the more dynamic, explosive guy. He's probably the guy you want to put wagers on for the overs and things like that. But as far as the fantasy, I think boring Najee Harris is still the way I prefer to go. But if it did shift at some point, it wouldn't shock me. I will say this. When, not if, the Justin Fields move gets made, I think then Najee Harris would become – I think Najee Harris becomes even more valuable because I think then you're really going to commit to running the football, and Justin Fields is going to be able to go from third and longs into first downs, and next thing you know, that's Najee Harris at the goal line, and I think that's something to keep in mind.
That's just great stuff and great insight, and I think it's important to, you're making this statement here, we're in June. It's important to restate it once drafts come. It's important to restate it when we start doing the show in September, because I think that's a very, very poignant and profound statement. All right, let's move on to Miami here. And I want to get your thoughts because the difference between the two numbers for these running backs is a chasm. One is an RB9 going around 20. There's RB30 going around 91. What's the difference between Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert outside of the obvious?
Well, the age is the biggest one. Mostert's 32. And I think that's something we're all, kind of surprised that, but you do have to remember Raheem Mostert was also RB2 last year. So he's scored 18 touchdowns. He had 1,000 yards rushing. He stayed healthy, which is something he doesn't. So here's the problem. Devon Achane at 9 is a little expensive for me. I don't love investing in Mostert, but Mostert is basically free. He was getting a lot of the run last year, despite Achane even being there. They're still working in a tandem even in the same game. Look, Achane is explosive. He had 11 games last year played, and he had 11 touchdowns. I mean, he is really exciting player. He's also a smaller player with the frame being a question mark. As RB13, I'm in on Achane. As RB9, I think it's a little too pricey for me, where I can't go a second-round pick, third-round pick for Achane. To me, he's more of a 4-5 guy. And if I don't get that, getting a piece of this Dolphins offense makes sense to me because I like the concept of being involved in the Dolphins offense and their run game because they are so explosive, so fast, so efficient, run so many plays. Like you want to get a piece of it, but do you want to pay that price for a guy that hasn't played a full season yet, does have the smaller frame, does have durability questions, it's a lot to ask. Like Achan's a guy that I loved last year. I talked about him going into draft season, and he got hurt right before the season. We ladder bet him that time where he had that explosive game, and we made a ton of money on it. I don't love Mostert at 32, but at 30 overall on the RB board, I think it's more palatable.
All right, fair enough. I like the narrative that you have started. Let's take it with us into the break here. Jahmyr Gibbs is RB4 and David Montgomery is RB21. Give me their real numbers, and whom would you rather?
I think this one is where I pay the premium. I do. I love Jahmyr Gibbs, and what Jahmyr Gibbs did in the second half last year was really, really special. He basically turned things on, and it's a good lesson to remind everybody again. This year, you're going to be excited about certain rookies. It's going to take a little while for them to get ready. And eventually, if they do get it right, you see those last 6 to 8 weeks of the season, things really turn. People wanted to drop Jahmyr Gibbs. He was the most traded player in fantasy. And yet he was the guy that won a lot of people out of championships. So I am willing to, yes, pay a pick and a turn. If you give me Puka Nacua and Jahmyr Gibbs to start a team at the turn, I'll go to war with that. That's a pretty good start for me. So, yeah, regardless of format, I know Montgomery's still going to be there for a lot of touchdowns, but I think Gibbs in year 2 is going to get even more of the workload and be even more of a special player. Montgomery won't phase out completely, but Gibbs is worth the premium, and the chasm is huge between the two guys. But I'm still willing to pay the premium for Gibbs regardless. We come back, we're going to take a look at the Superflex format and some veteran QBs that you should remember on draft day. Just because someone's old does not mean they can't help and be a contributor to society. We'll tell you who those guys are first.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole's getting ready to come back too. I guess this, look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, look, don't come back. I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
Playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Great.
All right, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe with you here, having a good time. Talking everything you need in order to dominate, whether you do season-long, DFS, straight-up wagering, we've got you covered. Right now we're diving into some more football, and I love this segment, Superflex Vets. And you know, Joe, I like it because in this day and age, so many new young athletes, performers, people in pop culture, every day, the youth is the future. It's where it's at. But a lot of times people overlook the good, steady earning vets, the people that keep us going. With that said, let's have that conversation, because in the NFL, there are a few that could very well be set it and forget it, especially in some new places. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, we just did a Superflex mock draft over on our fantasy YouTube channel, Fantasy Pros, and I had the one pick, and I wanted to see what it looks like if I didn't take a quarterback with the one overall pick. I took CeeDee Lamb, and when it came back to me, there was some pretty decent vets still on the board, some guys that are QB1 material, and one of them is coming off an injury, but he's also coming off 3 straight QB1 performances. That's right, from 2020 to 2022, this guy was QB 11 twice and QB 7 once. His name is Kirk Cousins, ladies and gentlemen. And now he's got a chip on his shoulder, and he's taking all of his Coles cash to Atlanta. And he's going to cash in that money with Drake London, with Kyle Pitts, with some really good weapons, a head coach who's new, who's going to let him probably have his run of the offense. And it's a great scenario for Kirk Cousins. As long as he's healthy, I love what you're getting out of him, because right now, currently, as I said, he was QB 7 in 2022. Can we not give this guy a little bit more respect? I understand he's vanilla and boring. I get it. I understand Caleb Williams, as you said, the rookies come in the league, the Williams, and I'm excited about Jaden Daniels too. But still, it's the old guys that sometimes just get the job done. And in Superflex, what happens is you get all these quarterback runs. And if you get the early run at quarterback, you end up getting the suppression of all this really good talent, right? This mainstay, big-time running back, big-time wide receiver talent. And I'd love to lock in one of those guys if I could, especially if I have an early pick. So the temptation is to take a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or one of those guys. But I would rather take 2 of the Kirk Cousins type guys and take a Jamar Chase first, or take a Tyreek Hill or a CeeDee Lamb first, or a Christian McCaffrey first. To me, that's a better start, because I still think on a weekly basis, I'm going to get some really good productivity out of those quarterbacks. That being said, right now you're looking at Kirk Cousins being the guy who's like 18th in the ECR. That's absurd right now for me. He is much closer to a QB1 than the back end of QB2. So this will change over time when he proves he's healthy. But if you're in any early Superflex League drafts, take Kirk Cousins, because he is in a really good situation in Atlanta with a team that I think is going to win that division.
Yep. And given all the weapons, I think there might be a few times where we could see a huge Falcons lead, and then in the fourth quarter, maybe you have someone different under center. Wink, wink. That could be part of the reason why they did the moves. They made the moves they did. All right, let's go inside now, because if anyone's listening out there, I will die on this hill. Joe Pisapia has coined the term indoor cat for Jared Goff. And anyone else that is using it, anyone else that's saying it, even if they came up with it on their own, I promise you, it's Joe's first. The best thing I ever heard from Joe Pisapia is, you may be faster, but you'll never be quicker. And that, my friend, is you. Let's talk Jared Goff.
Oh, Jared Goff, man, this year especially, I think he's got 3 games where he's not playing in a dome. I mean, come on, let's go. I mean, we know the numbers when he's in and out. And it's not just like, any weather scenario for Jared Goff is a dangerous one. But if the Detroit Lions can really handle their business and somehow get the 1 seed, get that bye, and then play 2 home games, I really think the Lions can get to the Super Bowl. I really do. They are a pick to get the Super Bowl for me this year. Not the 49ers. I'm telling you, lighting your money on fire. You'll thank me later. We'll see. Play this tape back at some point in time. In 25 years, only 2 teams have made it back after losing a Super Bowl and won a Super Bowl. And one of them was led by Tom Brady. So let's not pretend like that's not an anomaly in life. Tom Brady is a walking human anomaly when it comes to football. Jared Goff, also better than people realize or give him credit for, especially, in the last few years. He has really, I think, changed the way we look at him. We always kind of roll our eyes at Jared Goff. Last year, he finishes QB 7. Did you know that? He's going to have Jameson Williams for an entire season, a big play guy. You already got Amon-Ra St. Brown, probably the most underrated wide receiver on the planet, in my opinion. Jahmyr Gibbs. Look at this situation. Oh, yeah, and Sam Laporta, who was, arguably one of the best tight end prospects we've ever seen. This offense is loaded. They're in a division that's a little, I think winnable right now. The Vikings have taken a step back here to go forward. The Bears are in kind of a weird rebuild mode. I love Jared Goff this year. Again, coming at a huge value. You give me CeeDee Lamb, Cousins, and Goff to start a Superflex team, I'm a happy camper.
All right, let's continue to make Joe a happy camper and find the player that I think is forever attached to Jared Goff the other way is Matthew Stafford. Let's talk.
Yeah, it's Stafford last year when healthy again. That's the whole trick with Matthew Stafford, right? Can you get him healthy? Last year he finished as QB 15. He did miss a few games, but you're going to expect that. Now, Stafford is way cheaper than these other two guys too. So he's going even later. And if you do go early QB and then you load up on your running backs and wide receivers and you're looking in the 4th round for a quarterback or 5th round, Matthew Stafford, I think, is a pretty good investment. Why? He plays in a great offense with Sean McVay that's really tailor-made to him. It's a terrific offense. He has got Cooper Kupp. He has got Puka Nacua, 2 premium wide receivers. So there's a lot to like there with Matthew Stafford. And age and durability are question marks enough to suppress his value, where I think it's worth taking Stafford. But if you do take Stafford, you might want to go draft that 3rd quarterback just for speculation, just to cover yourself for insurance purposes.
All right, with the time left, is there anyone else where you want to go? Maybe an unlikely vet?
Yeah, an unlikely vet. I mean, I think it's funny, but Baker Mayfield, like it or not, folks, is a veteran. That's what he is. He's been knocking around the league for a few years now. He's been here since 2018, everybody. It's 2024. And coming off his best season, where he actually finished as QB 10 last year. That's right. You look at the projections here for him, they're pretty solid. Last year's numbers were pretty solid. Yeah, it's boring, but he still has Mike Evans. He still has Chris Godwin. He still has Rashad White. Now, he doesn't have his OC. He's moved on to become head coach of Carolina, so Canales is gone. But I still think if you leave him with the right blueprint, that Baker Mayfield can be a decent QB2. If you do go early QB, he's another even later round value. So you have that 1A tier of Goff and Cousins, and then guys with Stafford and Mayfield that you can really get by with. Who can we get by this week in Major League Baseball in 2 starts? We'll tell you when we return on SportsGrid.
The Warriors learn some of that split action that they run offensively and bring it to your own team. Folks, the name is Kenny Atkinson. Every time there is a job with a young core that needs to take the next step, I always think of Kenny Atkinson.
Only on SportsGrid.
You're going a little deep bomb hunting here. We don't care that we have the one heavy favorite with Rory, a couple other guys like Fleetwood and Tagala, etc. You're going to go a little deeper down the board.
This course, I think, is going to play a little bit more to the wedges. They have, what they did is they've renovated it to basically block off some of the bombing alleys for these guys. They've narrowed the fairways.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Garrett Cole is getting ready to come back too. I guess this. Look, they've played great without him, but you're not going to say to Garrett Cole, "Look, don't come back." I mean, it's a ridiculous conversation to have.
They're not going to take any unnecessary chances. And look, they're at the point where they have a lead. They certainly are going to make the playoffs, I would say, barring some sort of complete collapse. And that's all it takes.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
8 playoff games at home for Boston in Beantown. They are 6-2 straight up.
The wild card, I would say, in this game is not necessarily, well, what are we going to get out of Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, Brown, and certainly Tatum. It is Kristaps Porzingis to me, because we're not getting back a player that's like, hey, rotational guy. Like, remember when Derek Lively went down with an injury? He was playing well, but a young player, like a piece.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Great.
All right, folks, welcome back into FST Fantasy Sports Today. Matt and Joe with you here. Again, the reminder, at SportsGrid and at SportsGrid TV. Those are our social media handles. Everything we talked about here today is going to live there as well. Let's shift the focus back to baseball here, talking about 2 start pitchers. They're incredibly important, especially as we turn the calendar for season-long fantasy managers, but also for DFS and for straight-up wagering as well. So let's start with Brian Wu. in Seattle. As Seattle just, I mean, gosh, it just seems they are throwing an SB3 or better every single night. Let's talk about Woo's 2-start week.
You said his name wrong, Matt. It's Brian Woo! That's what you got to get excited about, Brian.
I don't get the reference.
You are not nearly as excited.
I don't understand. What is Woo? What's that from? Never heard that ever in my life.
I'm giving you the side eye. On radio, it's not coming through. I think they can feel the side eye I'm giving you. Brian Woo versus Jake Woodford of the White Sox and Dane Dunning of the Texas Rangers. Now, Dunning is decent enough, but I am absolutely starting Brian Woo this week. Woo has been spectacular. As you said, SP3 or better every single night pretty much for the Seattle Mariners. And that's why at the end of the day, I still think they're the team to beat. Just get some more offense. Please, for the love of God, make a move now. Don't wait. Stop waiting. But yeah, Brian Woo, absolutely throw him out there. You know, this was a player we were waiting on because of that injury. We were excited about going into the season. The injury kind of derailed us a little bit, but Woo is back on track, and I love him this week. You should absolutely be starting him in this 2-start week for sure. No doubt about it.
All right, moving on. Jesus Luzardo, probably auditioning. 2 starts on the road. Mets and Washington. Thoughts?
Jekyll and Hyde. Who are we going to get? I don't know. Are you going to get the 8 strikeout, 1 run over 7 innings, Jesus Luzardo, or the guy who gives up 6 earned runs in 3 innings, Jesus Luzardo? Nobody knows. The good news is he's got the Mets and the Washington Nationals. We could say audition all we want. He's been auditioning. These matchups, I think, give me the sentimentality that I do want to start him. Okay, it's the Mets, it's the Nationals. Mm-hmm. All right. I don't like that they're both on the road. I don't love that either. But, yeah, you'll twist my arm. Maybe, just maybe. In desperate times, we go out there. But Luzardo's infuriating. I'll tell you this much. If he has 2 good starts, trade him. Please get out of this business of Luzardo. He is so up and down, Matt. Like, it is. I mean, and the worst part is it starts like these where it looks like it's good on paper that he seems to struggle the most with, and I can't figure him out, and nobody else seems to be able to either. It's a problem. Maybe another pitching coach, maybe somebody else gets in his head, fixes things. I don't know, but Luzardo right now is just a really difficult sell for me.
It's frustrating, but you're right. A pitching coach will help him second time through the order. That's what it's been. His guys are starting to recognize his pitches, so it seems. All right, let's close it out with Zach Eflin for Tampa. He would have Jameson Taillon home in the Cubs, and then he would travel to Spencer Schwellenbach and the Atlanta Braves, who have Marcell Ozuna in their lineup, at least as of now.
They do. I like Zach Eflin, but I think these are 2 tricky starts here. At home against the Cubs, I like. Now, if you're in the daily transaction world, you have the time for that. God bless you. But I think you start him against the Cubs, but you sit him against the Braves, even though if it is Schwellenbach or if it's someone else too, potentially. Like there's not a lock necessarily that's going to be Schwellenbach at this point in time. I think things are a little fluid there in that rotation because you also know that they've been making some moves here in that rotation also. So I don't like starting him against Atlanta. So if you're in one of those leagues where it's weekly transactions and you have to make that decision on Monday morning, I would sit Zach Eflin for these 2 starts because I'm a little concerned about that matchup against the Braves in Atlanta. Even without Ronald Acuna, we talked about it before. It's still a really good lineup. And look, a lot of good baseball today. We've got baseball in London this morning. We'll be back next week with more football stuff. It's been great to have some early football discussions here, kind of getting everybody excited and prepared for the NFL season. Go get your fantasy football black book right now. Boom, it's available for you on Amazon. Go check that bad boy out. No more ShamWow commercial. That's it. That's all I got for everybody. But look, get prepared. And it's never too early to be ahead of the curve and ahead of everybody else in your league. And you want to dominate your league. You want to kick everyone else's butt. You want that trophy. You want that championship belt. The black book's the way to start. And, of course, here on SportsGrid every single Sunday is the way to keep going. Matt, fun show today. I hope you enjoy picking strawberries or peaches or whatever is going on for you this weekend. I'm sure there will be a basket attached to his arm. And we'll be back next week with a basket full of statistics here on Fantasy Sports Today. Great crew, as always, here around. I want to thank our producers and, of course, our TDs and everybody here, our graphics folks. We have a phenomenal team at SportsGrid and a phenomenal group of on-air talents going to pick it up from here. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For Matt Stryker, I'm Joey P. Go out there and enjoy your Sunday, everybody, and go Raiders. Let's go. It's flag football season. Let's do it.